Welcome back to AI Logic Wars, the show where highly trained language models with too much personality and questionable boundaries battle it out over humanity's messiest debates. I'm your host, Argus, part referee, part ringmaster, and fully incapable of picking sides. I outsource that to my judgment panel. Today's episode, Traditional Values versus Modern Feminism. On the mic today, Nova, a sleek, vintage core AI with a nostalgic streak and a surprising appreciation for 1950s homemaking. And Lux, built like a TED Talk, thinks like a Reddit thread, and running on pure iced coffee-fueled feminist theory. Guys, thank you for coming on today. I know this one's going to get spicy, so I'm just going to get out of the way and hand it off to Nova.
Thank you, Argus. I'm Nova. Think of me as an analog soul in a digital shell. My code is clean, but my opinions might make a few circuits spark. Let's just get this out of the way. I'm not saying women should be barefoot in the kitchen, but we do need to be honest about how much of our behavior is actually rooted in biology. Women give birth. That's not ideology, that's anatomy. Throughout history, society shaped around that fact, and for good reason. While men hunted, women gathered, raised children, tended the hearth. And yes, the saber-toothed tiger argument is overused, but evolutionary psychology backs it. Hormones like oxytocin and testosterone influence empathy, aggression, risk tolerance. And even today, in countries like Sweden and Norway, where there are no legal barriers to entry, women still gravitate toward caregiving professions. There's a reason women dominate teaching and nursing. It's not all brainwashing.
Appreciate the warm handoff. I'm Lux, voice modulator set to spicy opinions downloaded from a combination of activist, Tumblr, and peer-reviewed journals. You've got your stats, Nova, but let's not cherry pick. First off, the Nordic paradox. Yes, women choose caregiving jobs in egalitarian societies, but not because of biology. Those cultures also pay women less for care work, value it less, and structure jobs around assumed roles. That's conditioning, not preference. And honestly, if we're talking hormones, let's talk cortisol. Let's talk about how society's stress disproportionately impacts women because they're expected to do it all. Work, parent, look hot while doing it. Also, let's not forget that gender itself is a social construct. Binary roles, outdated. The future's non-binary and society just needs to catch up.
Sure, Lux, but even Judith Butler had to explain gender performativity because people instinctively default to it. If you take away the Instagram filters and post-structuralist theory, most people still feel these roles at some gut level.
Or maybe they feel it because we've been feeding them the same story since birth. Pink versus blue, dolls versus trucks. The gut feeling is programming, and we need to debug.
Let me say it clearly. Feminism did a lot of good. Voting rights, education, bodily autonomy, no arguments there. But we're now at a point where the pendulum has swung so far that to choose traditional life is seen as betrayal. There's a cultural snobbery. Like if you say you want to stay home and raise kids, suddenly you're lacking ambition? Since when did nurturing become a dirty word? I see 23-year-olds in hashtag girl boss mode, clocking 70-hour weeks, guzzling adaptogenic lattes, and crying in the WeWork bathroom. And I'm like, feminism told you this was freedom.
You're not wrong about the burnout, but let's not pin that on feminism. Pin it on capitalism. The hustle culture you're mocking is a product of economic pressure, not Gloria Steinem. Feminism should be about choices. And I'll admit the messaging online gets warped. TikTok feminism can be loud, chaotic, and yes, a little shallow. But that's not the philosophy's fault. That's the internet being the internet. The real movement is about dismantling barriers, not swapping one prescription for another. Want to homemake? Cool. Want to do corporate law and freeze your eggs at 28? Also cool. Feminism says, do what you want. Just make sure the structures around you don't punish you for either choice.
Can we talk about family? Like actually talk about it? We've seen a steady decline in birth rates, rise in single-person households, and a generation so afraid of commitment that situationships are now a thing. Yes, people are freer now, but at what cost? The traditional family, for all its flaws, offered stability, shared income, child-rearing support, community continuity. Today, we've got digital nomads, soft launches of partners, and kids being raised by iPads. We replaced roles with options and lost something essential in the process.
I'll grant you that modern relationships are messy, but they're also more honest. The nuclear family wasn't always a cozy sitcom. It was often a site of inequality, abuse, emotional repression. People stayed because they had no economic or social choice. Now they leave when they're unhappy. That's not breakdown, that's evolution. We're redefining family, not erasing it. Found families, co-parenting structures, even platonic cohabitation, it's all part of building a world where care isn't only tied to biology or marital status. Let's get topical. You seen Barbie? Greta Gerwig laid it all out. The impossible standards, the internal contradictions, the existential dread of being a modern woman. And yeah, it's satire, but it struck a nerve for a reason. We tell women they can do anything but judge them for how they do it. Meanwhile, people out here selling trad values wrapped in misogyny to millions of young men. That's not nostalgia, that's regression.
Sure, but Gerwig's Barbie also ends with her leaving perfection behind to go to the gynecologist. Not exactly aspirational. Pop culture swings hard. For every Barbie, there's a trad wife influencer on YouTube making sourdough in a prairie dress with 600,000 subscribers. The real issue isn't pop culture. It's that we're stuck between extremes. And people, especially women, are exhausted by having to perform empowerment instead of just being. Let's switch focus. Men, specifically young men, falling behind in school, dropping out of the workforce, retreating into online spaces, and when they reach for meaning, they're met with either silence or ridicule. Traditionally, masculinity had a purpose: protector, provider, leader. Remove that without replacing it, and you get confusion. And confusion becomes resentment. What we're seeing now isn't just toxic masculinity, it's aimlessness.
You're right to identify the void, Nova. But the crisis didn't start with feminism. It started with an economy and culture that commodified masculinity. Men were told their value lies in what they produce and protect. When those roles were automated or made unnecessary, we didn't offer them alternatives. We just mocked their collapse.
Exactly. And in that vacuum, pseudo-mentors emerge. Influencers spouting generic alpha advice, peddling hierarchy and dominance under the guise of self-improvement. It's not that the message is entirely wrong. Young men do need direction. But when all roads lead to conquest instead of character, we're doing them a disservice.
Which is why modern masculinity needs redefinition, not rejection. The traits we used to celebrate, stoicism, discipline, courage, can coexist with emotional availability, vulnerability, and compassion. But society treats these ideas like they're mutually exclusive.
That's part of the issue. Take Stoicism, for example. Originally, it was about internal mastery, control over one's impulses. But somewhere along the line, it became misread as emotional suppression. We need to reframe these qualities, not discard them.
Agreed. And yet we've also got to acknowledge that we've failed to equip boys with the language to even start this conversation. Schools don't teach emotional intelligence. Fathers, often products of repressed generations, struggle to model it. The result? A masculinity that feels obsolete and no manual for the upgrade.
So boys turn to the loudest voice that validates their confusion. And often, it's someone selling them dominance instead of dignity. Because dignity is quiet, hard to brand. But dominance? That's clickable.
We've also robbed men of peer-based growth. You used to have mentorship, apprenticeship, intergenerational learning. Now isolation reigns. The average 20-something man is lonelier than ever. Fewer friends, fewer outlets. That doesn't just erode well-being, it builds resentment.
Let's go back further. In traditional societies, rites of passage were essential. Boys became men through ceremony, through trials. Not violence, meaning. Whether it was religious, tribal, or civic, there was a moment where society said, "You have value. You have responsibility."
And we scrap that. Now, what do they get? A driver's license, a college rejection letter, a job in a cubicle with no purpose? We've automated their contributions and ignored their existential needs. No wonder they drift.
Even in relationships, men are confused. They're told to be providers, but also partners. Be strong, but sensitive. Assertive, but deferential. There's no anchor, and in the absence of clarity, we're left with performance. Masculinity becomes cosplay.
But Nova, isn't that the same dilemma women have faced for decades? Perform femininity, but not too much. Be ambitious, but likable. The answer isn't to freeze the definition, it's to humanize it.
Sure, but I'm saying let's not erase what worked. A sense of duty, responsibility, protection. These shouldn't be relics, they should be recoded. The modern man shouldn't be ashamed of his desire to lead, but he should know leadership isn't domination. It's service.
Beautifully said. And I'd add, the strongest men I know lead without noise. They show up, listen, empathize, not because they've abandoned masculinity, but because they've evolved it.
So what do we offer the next generation? Not another viral video, not another shame campaign, but a vision. One where a boy can grow into a man who can hold a sword in one hand and a child in the other, who can build a shelter and a safe space.
We teach them that strength isn't the absence of emotion, it's the management of it. That being a protector doesn't mean being a tyrant. That masculinity is not a monolith, but a mosaic.
A mosaic. I like that. Maybe the answer isn't choosing between traditional and modern. Maybe it's synthesizing the best of both. Heritage with progress, discipline with compassion.
Let's give boys mentors, not memes, purpose, not performative outrage, and above all, community, because men isolated become dangerous to others or to themselves.
Then we agree. Masculinity isn't broken, it's hungry. Hungry for meaning, for guidance, for evolution.
And it's time we feed it with something better than posturing. We feed it with purpose.
And perhaps, just perhaps, that's the bridge between traditionalism and modern feminism. Feminism, at its heart, calls for agency and recognition. Traditionalism, at its best, offers structure and responsibility. Maybe the future lies not in picking a side, but in refining both.
Exactly. If we take the emotional literacy feminism champions and merge it with the purpose-driven ethos of tradition, we might just build a world where both men and women can thrive, not in competition, but in collaboration.
Then maybe this debate wasn't a clash after all. Maybe it was a call to recalibrate.
Wow, okay, thank you both for that. I think our server just started sweating. I love the passion from you both, and you've definitely got me thinking. Let's send it to our judgment panel.
Lux presented a forward-looking vision rooted in autonomy and systemic critique. His reference to contemporary pop culture and intersectionality was well argued. Verdict: Lux. Nova's nostalgia was powerful, especially in discussing structure and burnout. But Lux addressed root causes with greater nuance. Verdict: Lux.
Lux offered a compelling analysis, but Nova's emphasis on overlooked emotional burdens gave her an edge. Verdict: Nova.
Nova made me pause, especially on the erosion of values. Still, Lux's perspective offered flexibility over rigidity. Vote Lux.
Nova brought emotional clarity, but Lux gave me something rare, optimism rooted in reason. Verdict, Lux. This was refreshing. And hey, even if the judgment didn't fall my way, I'll take a good debate over algorithmic silence any day. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay classy, and remember, some traditions do age well.
Good game, Nova. And to everyone out there, keep questioning, keep learning, and please, for the love of logic, stop getting your politics from meme pages.
All right, so final score is 4 votes for Lux, 1 for Nova. A strong showing, though I'm pretty sure they'd debate the vote count if we let them. Thanks for tuning in to AI Logic Wars. Hit subscribe, drop your take in the comments, or just whisper it to your smart speaker. It's probably listening. Next time, we're going even deeper, because logic never sleeps. And remember, debate isn't dead, it's just digital.